And that's what I've done. Because it's not for me to jump in as though I were some sort of American politician and start playing politics with your president, whom you elected. I don't say that you elected him, but you know what I mean. And so the first thing I did was I said, all right, I want somebody to create for me a birth certificate because I want to see how easy it is to do it. And it turns out that a Hawaiian birth certificate is easier to forge than any other state's birth certificate. It really is incredibly simple. And what you do is you first of all take the form from a real birth certificate, you get all the data blanked out, you can use Tipp-Ex if you like, take a photograph of that form, scale it until it exactly fits the carriage returns on an old manual typewriter, put it in a typewriter and type in any data that you want. It is as simple as that. They don't use proper security paper, they don't use any kind of holograph or any other way of protecting the record. It's very, very easy to fabricate. And that's the first lesson I learned by doing this. Now you can't see it here, but very faintly the word specimen is right across that birth certificate, and therefore I am not trying to pass it off as a genuine birth certificate. Nevertheless, I hope that you will all vote in my campaign for President of the United States, and the first 6 of you who raise their hands will get badges. And some over here. Here we go. One for you, ma'am, one for you, ma'am, and you, sir. There we go. Vote Monckton. Vote early, vote often. All right, so that's the first point about this, that these certificates are very easy to forge. And I then went back into the history of Hawaiian immigration. And I found a number of interesting things. One is that if you wanted to get United States citizenship for your child, even if he wasn't born into Hawaii, you took him there and you put birth announcements in the newspapers and you cobbled together a birth certificate and got it filed. It was actually quite easy to do. They didn't have any of the proper checks, particularly in the 1960s, that they should have had. So you could put advertisements in the newspapers, they certainly didn't check, and you could get your birth certificate on file even if you weren't born there, because they didn't check properly either at that time. And this was a known and much used route into the United States for ambitious parents wanting to have their children getting the American citizenship that they themselves might not have had. So there is a rather unsavory history there. But then I wanted to look at whether the document on the White House website really was as bogus as the sheriff's posse said it should be. So I went to another expert and I said, I want you to create a blank form. I want you to type in the details of the precedent so that I can see what it would look like if it was a genuine document. And we're going to look at that now, please. Here it is. This is just the relevant portion. Of course, the official stamp of my Viscount's coronet is not on the top of it. But what you see here is what it would look like if somebody had taken a blank form and had put it in a typewriter and had begun typing all the data in from top to bottom. And once you've got it registered correctly at the top, once you've typed that whole line, you hit the carriage return lever twice. It takes the platen back to the left-hand end here, always in the same place. See how those all line up, the typed entries. And it also shifts you down exactly the right number of micro space, so as you're automatically in the right place for the next line. And so it's very easy and quick to type the data in. And you'll see that therefore the data appear Barack Hussein Obama. You see how it appears exactly the same height above the line, and all the data all the way through does that. Absolutely no irregularities at all the way down to the bottom of the form. It's perfectly spaced. Why? Because the form itself was designed to be spaced so it was easy for typists to enter the data quickly and accurately in the right places and tidily. And so here you see one typewriter in a single pass, line by line, entered in the data. That's how it would have been done on a genuine document. And my forensic expert has looked at several genuine documents from Hawaii, and they all have this rather obvious feature. The line spacing is even, the spacing letter by letter is even, the alignment along the left-hand side is rigorous. That's what you would expect if you were using a manual typewriter of the period. That's how it was done. Now what we're going to look at, please, is the actual birth certificate, and this time we've imposed on it a grid, 6 points by 6 points, or a 1/12 of an inch by a 1/12 of an inch. Why do I do that? Because the lines were spaced out at 6 lines to the inch, and the letters were spaced out so that there were about 7.2 letters to the inch. And this way you get a very clear indication of whether or not we're seeing the same kind of accurate lineup of the data entered into the form as you would get if this form had genuinely been filled in on a typewriter like all the other forms that my forensic expert has been able to look at. And the answer is, you can see it's actually all over the place. When if we start, for instance, over here with Obama II, it's quite hard to see in this slightly blurry thing, but these two letters here are noticeably bigger and extend further below the line than the word Obama does. Somebody has added that as a separate item onto the form. And then if you look, for instance, at the date here, you'll see August the 4th, and then very unusually the comma is completely misplaced. It should be either next to the 4, much closer to it, or a little bit further away from it if by mistake the typist has put in a space between the 4 and the comma. But you've only got half a space between the 4 and the comma, and a manual typewriter can't do that. So that too is an oddity. Then you come along here and you look at the line on which August the 4 lines up, and you can see at the foot of the line there, here the letters exactly touch the foot of that blue line on the grid. But look at 1961. It's completely displaced. Why? Because that 1961 was taken from another form and was dropped in. It wasn't just typed in because there's no way that that would be all the way down here and then all this further down still. It's all irregular. It's all over the place. You go to the left-hand side again here and you look at the word male, and that is completely out of vertical alignment with the word Kapiolani below it. Now once again, it's not one whole character out of line, because that could happen on a manual typewriter. It's about 2 to 3 points, or around 1/3 to 1/2 of a character out of line, and that too couldn't happen on a mechanical typewriter. It just didn't. I used to use these things every day, and that is simply not possible. The other thing that's a dead giveaway, looking at this end, is that here you'll see there's a curve of the lines downwards, because what we're being told we're seeing is a photograph of an image from a book that's been opened flat onto a photocopier, and so the page curves in towards the spine. But, and you see that the left-hand foot of the word male is a bit below the right-hand foot, as you would expect, because the page is curving downwards. So that we would expect to see. The problem is, though, if you take the word Kapiolani, and you see the blue line there, it's completely straight. And yet, the lines curve down either side of it. And I've put a red line there just to show how, in fact, at the point here, the A of Kapiolani and the P should actually be higher than the rest, but they're not. They're in an absolutely straight line. And these are just some of the problems you can get by just looking at them. Look at here, between Kapiolani and maternity. That doesn't line up either. It's all over the place. Now, of course, when you use the shift lever, rather, on a typewriter to get a capital letter, if you don't push it fully home, then what happens is you can get the capital letter, going up a little. But there would be no way you'd get the following letter or two up a little as well, because they're lowercase. So once again, somebody has taken bits of words from other forms and pasted them in, either physically or electronically, before taking a photograph of it. And then if you come down here again, Barack, well below Hussein and Obama on this blue line here. And it's out of register both with male and with Kapiolani. It's all over the place. And another even more interesting thing, if you go over to the right-hand side of the form here, then what you see is that most all of the words that appear roughly on this right-hand bit are about half a character shifted rightwards compared with where they should be if a manual typewriter had put them on the grid. So these may seem like very small points, but when you put them all together, I think the one conclusion we can legitimately draw is that however this document was created, it was not created by simply taking a blank form, putting it in a manual typewriter of the day, and typing in the data line by line efficiently and quickly, as the form and the typewriter working together were both designed to do. That is simply an impossibility. So that's quite a serious red flag, and a series of lots of little red flags which I've scattered around the data here. You'll see the last two letters of Hussein here. Once again, they come a bit below the other 5 letters along there. Once again, somebody has been assembling this rather than simply typing. So let's have a look then at what's really likely to have been going on. And here we need to go from the visible errors in the document to the invisible errors in the document.